This is Infection, the survival podcast, recorded live on Tuesday, July 14th, 2020, episode 287. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of Infection, the survival podcast. Infection is your source for the latest information on survival video games. We bring you the latest news, reviews, updates, and more each and every week. My name is Nick Craig. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. Of course, you can visit our website. It is infectionpodcast.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at Nicholas M. Craig. I'm also on Parler, Gab, all those other weird social networks. And if you're interested in some IT things, you can visit my IT blog, dudeinit.com. Joining me, as he does each and every week from the great state of Idaho, Brian, who put the I in information technology.
Oh, yes.
Hey, Brian. How are you?
Why, hello. I'm doing very well. And
Excellent.
If you guys want to find me, you can, of course, find me at Boise Computer on Twitter or my website, biteoftech.com. And, of course, if you go to our website, infectionpodcast.com, you will notice, we may be having an issue with our server, so it might not pull up right this minute. Okay, I was going in to check something and it wasn't responding, so don't check it this second, but we'll have it figured out here soon. But if you go to infectionpodcast.com later, you'll be able to go there and join our Discord server. There's a link for that. Also, we have on there links to all of our video platforms. So if you want to go through DLive, BitChute, of course, Twitch here, and YouTube. If you want to go to the audio-only formats, we have those in the lower right-hand corner to where you can go on and you can get it on a podcast app on your phone. There's desktop apps, whatever you use to listen to podcasts. We have links for all of those, and then we'll have show notes for this episode and all the episodes up to here. So if you want to watch or listen to this after the fact, you can follow along with the show notes, or you can just listen live, which we do recommend, because then you can join in on the game giveaways. You can come and participate. If you want to participate and you can't join us live, of course, go to our Discord and submit news through the news channel. And that's a really helpful way for us. If there's a topic that you think we're not covering, if there is a news story that we're not covering, things like that. So that's a great way to do that for us.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. And again, that you can check out the website, infectionpodcast.com. Our podcast and all those other things are on there. Well, Brian, before we get into the show this evening, I've got some news to report.
Yes.
This will be the last episode of Infection. This will be the last episode of Infection in this current setup for me. Brian, I became a homeowner today. I had a closing on my house, and we are going to be scrambling to get everything moved over the next essentially 4 days or so into the new house, and we will be back in a probably much more scaled down video capacity, but a video capacity next Tuesday for the show. So we'll have a different background that we'll be working on over the next couple of months, so I'll get all that stuff squared away. But this will be my final episode. It started about 3 years ago, Brian. Right around 3 years ago, I moved here to North Carolina, and after 3 years, this is it for this current rendition of the Infection podcast set here on the program. So next week, expect a very tired and just a huge canvas behind me, because I'm not gonna have time to decorate anything. But we'll be here next week. Brian, I have exciting news to announce as well. I'm gonna have gigabit internet, which is gonna mean plenty. Which I'm not saying not gonna change anything for the show. But it will allow us to maybe do some more video things and maybe change the way that some of the different CDNs we're on. I'm not really sure exactly what that's going to entail yet, but we should have hopefully, my fingers are crossed, Brian, you've got fiber internet. I'll have fiber internet. Hopefully we can hold 1,000 kilobit, a 1 megabit video call back and forth without you turning into a freaking 8-bit arcade machine. So,
that'll be good.
That is my intention. So yes, Green Man, 3 years. It's been about 3 years, probably in the next couple weeks or so. I think it was July, maybe it was August. I moved just about 3 years ago. So final. This Brian, we've had multiple eras of Infection podcast, and the third era for me is sunsetting. So, yeah, exciting news. I'm very much looking forward to it. So,
very good. That'll be very nice, and I think you'll be pleased. It's kind of nice when you have your own place and you just come in and it's comfortable.
Yes,
it's a little bit different when it's someone else's place. So
yeah, it'll be good. Got to try to figure out what I'm going to do for the back. And one of the cool things, Brian, I'm looking forward to doing, is when I get the studio set up in there, is have the ability to have somebody in there, not for this show particularly, but I've never really had the ability to have a second person in the same proximities. I mean, we've talked about in the past, either me going out to you or you coming out here, and we've never really had a good way to do a show. I'm going to make sure that's part of the setup out there as well, so I'll have an area for somebody else to be in there and be on video and audio and whatnot. So I'm rather excited for that as well.
Very good.
Yeah. So that's had my attention most of the day. If I seem a little preoccupied, I'm just kind of a little scatterbrained, Brian. Yeah. So that is why. But I'm here.
Well, we'll work to make it through.
Oh yes, we absolutely will. How was Game of the Week?
It was good. We jumped in and played some 7 Days to Die. I wasn't able to play before because I was out of town over the 4th of July. But I was able to play this past weekend and had some fun. It was fairly stable. I don't think it crashed at all. So I think they fixed that bug in the recent patch. I was able to go through and just kind of get my character leveled up, get it to where I could actually craft some decent things. But not a huge amount of progress, but it is looking good. It was nice to see some of the new features and actually get to run around and play in the world. So it was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Yeah, I saw that a lot of people were playing that and were having a good time.
And it should still be up and running. So
okay, great. Excellent. I absolutely am not going to be around this Friday. Friday's move day. Do you have anything in particular that you're planning on Game of the Week, or maybe we're just doing a kind of a
no, let's just kind of hold off and see if there's something, because people may want to keep doing 7 Days to Die. It's hard to know. If not, then we can pick out another game and maybe run around. I'm not sure 100% if I will be there, because I just don't know what my Friday is going to entail quite yet.
Of course, not a problem at all. A rule breaking doorknob said 7 Days to Die Easy Anticheat has blue screened my computer twice in the past week. My computer's not blue screened once in the 4 years I've owned it. Well, that's unfortunate. I wonder where the issue is. I wonder if it's Easy Anti-Cheat's hook into 7 days that's the issue, or if is it Easy Anti-Cheat itself that's the issue. I know Easy Anti-Cheat is super widely used. So it must just be something with the integration into 7 days that's causing that issue. The blue screen uninstalled all games I own that used EAC. Really? Wow. I have not heard that, Brian. Have you heard? I haven't seen it. I haven't seen anything on Twitter or anything like that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. So that's kind of weird. Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, we'll be talking about anti-cheat a little bit, which is possibly, who knows, with Windows updates and things like that. If they're on a kind of a preview build of it, they may be getting some changes and things that might be playing with their ability to run normal anti-cheat. So
yeah,
it's kind of hard to say.
Now, does our server require anti-cheat?
Yeah, it's built in. So
okay.
We have it activated, and
okay,
it should be. So
okay, awesome. All right, so that's Game of the Week. I'm going to be, for the record, I'll be AFK for the next couple of weeks. So if you don't see me in Discord and you think I've fallen off the face of the earth, it's because I probably have. So just be aware of that. Brian, I want to talk about a couple of comments we got. Brian, it only took 2 weeks of you and I talking about political issues on Infection Podcast to be called racists on YouTube. It took literally 2 episodes before somebody commented. They first of all commented the definition of racism from dictionary.com, and then went to call us a bunch of white guys. I'm going to pull up the comment because I thought it was pretty rich here.
That sounds pretty racist.
Yeah, so they posted the definition of racism and it said white dude here, which by that in its own self is racist. I don't know why you would refer to me just based on the color of my skin, but white dude here calling you guys out for your race. So he's a white dude calling us out for our racism, for your racism, Brian. So you talking to you and
mine specifically. Oh, okay.
Well, yours and mine. Shitting on corporations for doing good business, i.e. supporting all their customers, is not virtue signaling. I won't stoop to your level by assuming what's in your head, but you're dog whistling too much. You don't want to be lumped in together with neo-Nazis plaguing this country, Brian. So we are neo-Nazis, apparently, because I don't think that Fortnite and Epic should be promoting people that refer to themselves as Marxists on their video game platform. So it only took 2 weeks, Brian, for 5 years of doing the program, and it took 2 weeks for us to be called racists and neo-Nazis. How does that make you feel? I'd like to get your initial reaction.
Well, I just think to myself, we will look back in 10 years at this, just like, well, you could look at the Germans who looked back after World War II and said, wow, that was pretty stupid. And I think we'll have a lot of people looking back and saying, because if these people did get Marxism, aka communism, like they want, they'd be living in a hellhole, and they'd say, "Oh, everyone else caused this." They wouldn't actually look at themselves and say, "Hey, I asked for this and I got it, and this sucks." Yeah. So hopefully this all passes. People will start to treat each other with respect again, and quit subvertingly trying to push communism. It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, I love the...
I stand by my comment. It's communism. I will not support communism, period.
Yeah, and I think our point was pretty well made last week, that there's a time and the place for those conversations, and in my opinion, again, I'm not the expert in I'm really not the expert in anything, but it just doesn't seem to me that a 40-minute in-game video with Van Jones, who is referred to white people as some of the most terrible things in the world, just to me doesn't seem to be the way about going about something. Again, as I made my point clear last week, Epic made how many billions of dollars over the past couple of years. To me, it seems like that social change could be done in other ways. But I appreciate your comment on YouTube. Seriously, I do. Without sounding like a jerk, I do. I appreciate people's comments. I think it's frankly bullshit that you would call Brian and I racist not knowing anything about us, and never having commented on any of our videos in the past. I can't imagine you know us super well. But to me, that seemed kind of rich. So we've officially hit it, Brian. Two weeks. 2 weeks of talking about it, and we are now racists. So good work. Good work.
I mean, they could pressure me all they want. I'm not going to promote communism. Yeah. It's just, it comes down to that. You can sugarcoat it. You can call it whatever you want. I will not back communism. Period.
Well, it's a bold stance, Brian.
I know that's a crazy stance to put yourself on, but I will not support communism, just like I won't support murdering your neighbor.
That's a hot take.
I mean, I know it's a bold stance. It's a bold stance to take, but I don't want people killing other people. I don't want people assaulting other people. I don't want people stealing from other people. I mean, I know I'm bigoted and closed-minded, but that's just not what I want.
Yes. Now, of course, we say all of this in tongue-in-cheek because, of course, it is ridiculous to claim that. It's just ridiculous to claim. But speaking of Brian, following this trend, let's talk about Donald Trump for a second. His Twitch channel was unbanned after a 2-week suspension, which was a typical suspension. That is like their typical grace period. And he is now back on the platform. Apparently, after comments he made in 2016 is what they banned him over. But now he's back. So, not super sure exactly how that works, but he's back now, at least.
Well, the thing is, I don't think he's streamed on there since 2016. So.
No, he does. He streams on there all the time.
Does he stream on Twitch regularly?
Does,
I've never seen him on here, but I don't follow him on Twitch. So.
Yes. Yeah, he does. He does stream on there.
But it's just his speeches and things, right? I assume he does rallies or something.
Well, yeah, but there's other things on there too, like they do videos throughout the week. But nevertheless, he's back on Twitch. Not that he had really an audience on Twitch, but yeah. So that is that.
Well, very good. We'll see. We'll see if that keeps happening. We'll see if he bothers streaming on it. That'll be another thing.
He is. He was live tonight. He was live.
Oh, so he's already back.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll see if they ban him again here in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about. There's some things going on with Epic now. I think we mentioned last week about Sony investing $250 million into Epic. We didn't. I think we talked about that separately then.
Yeah. I think it just happened this week. Yeah.
5 days ago. So I wasn't sure if we got a little bit of news of it before this article. Now, Sony invested $250 million into Epic Games. And one thing I wanted to kind of point out is that $250 million may seem like, a big amount of money to do, but really it's compared to, Tencent, who invested $330 million into them back in 2012 and now owns 40% of the company. That Sony, with $250 million, gives them about 1.5% stake in the company. So that's how much the value of Epic Games has risen in that time. So this is really just, it's a 1.5%. I think it's more of a partnership of them, because they're going to be doing things with the new console that's coming out. I think this is kind of just strategizing themselves to make a partnership in that way and have a little bit of incentive because they're invested in them.
Let me ask this to you, Brian. They purchased 1.5%, I believe, share.
This $250 million is 1.5%. Yeah.
Why? This is such a minority share that it is. They don't. And maybe, and I'm not. Maybe I guess I'm ignorant on what investing into a company looks like, but. First of all, for Sony, $250 million is not a lot. So let's start with that. It's not that's not a lot of money. Sony's got plenty of money. $250 million is like probably a couple $100 to you and I.
Yeah.
So why would they throw, but nevertheless, still a substantial amount of money. Why would they throw $250 million into Epic with gaining such a small, they don't have any decision rights within the company. Now, is it just an investment because they think Epic's going to go up and up and up? Possibly, but they didn't seem to buy enough options to make anything.
Yeah, I don't think they're trying to necessarily make them do anything specific. I don't think that's what it really comes down to. I think this is just more of a, hey, we believe in your new Unreal Engine 5 that you're going to be releasing. Here's a percentage stake, and maybe they'll have a little bit of, hey, we have part of your company. Here's some input. But they'll be doing partnerships anyways. Perhaps this was a little bit of payoff for having done the, doing the exclusive for the Unreal 5 reveal. That could be, this could have been branched in that. Hey, we'll do it under your platform if you buy, you buy into the company. It could have. Who knows? That's speculation, but it could be just something as simple as that. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
Or as the rule breaking doorknob says, it may be something with taxes as well. Who knows?
It could be.
I can't imagine what, but you never know.
To me, it's just like the headline is bigger than the headline is bigger than the investment, right? Because it seemed to me
for them,
the headline
$250 million for them is very little, but they're writing all about it. It's keeping the words going.
That's kind of what I'm saying is like not the advertising on it, but the amount, the story of, oh, look at Sony is buying Epic, like that shock headline. I don't know. It seems rather odd. I do want to thank our friend, it's Judd, for hitting us up with the 21-month resubscription here on Twitch, as well as our friend Green Man Cartoons, who also hit us up with 30 months here on Twitch for the program. So thanks to both of those gentlemen for hitting us up with the resubscriptions. Nice. We greatly appreciate it. Do you think Brian, that Microsoft will make a similar investment into Epic? Is this one of these rising tides raises all ships kind of thing? And for Sony, investing $250 million into Epic allows more developers to maybe get into the market, which means more games, possibly more sales. What is the angle?
Yeah.
I know I kind of asked you this earlier, but what is the angle here? I'm still not. Sony says this is their statement. Sony's lending portfolio of entertainment assets and technology, and Epic's social entertainment platform and digital ecosystems to create unique experiences for creators and consumers. Sony's chairman.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The one thing I want to say, I think that they are tying themselves to Sony more than Microsoft.
Okay.
Because do you remember the article where they talked about they had actually changed things with the engine itself to be able to handle the high bandwidth that the PlayStation was able to do?
Yeah.
Like there was some sort of thing that was super fast that they had to rework how the engine worked to make it to where it would take advantage of the PlayStation. I haven't heard anything about like that with the Xbox. So, I mean, that's kind of I think there's more of a partnership. I think the partnership will be with Sony and Epic. I think they're a little more along the same lines. And I think, so I don't know. I just don't see Microsoft. I haven't heard any words of Microsoft doing anything in cooperation with Epic up to this point, where we've had a number of things in cooperation with Epic, with Sony. So that's just my 2 cents.
Interesting. Well, we'll follow again. I don't think it's a lot of money, really. I mean, let's see. What is Sony's net worth? Their estimated Sony. Is this Sony? Is all Sony one thing, Brian? I assume that is. SNE is where they're traded.
I mean, there's a couple different branches of it.
But their net worth is estimated about $76 billion. So to me, it seems like the 250 is not a substantial amount of money, which again, I just find kind of odd. Maybe it is more of what you're saying, Brian, just to maybe, all right, this is what we're going to pay to just associate and have maybe a better working relationship with Epic.
It's like they're investing themselves a little bit into it to where, I think it's just a sign of, hey, this is what we're doing.
But now let me ask you this, because you said that you think Sony's going to have a better relationship with Epic. But with all of the stuff that Microsoft is doing with of course, when we think Microsoft, we think Xbox. But with all the work they've been doing recently with PC things, Brian, with cross-platform and all this other stuff, to me, it seems like, if anything, Microsoft should have the better relationship with Epic, because their platform is way more used on. I mean, like every game that's pretty much being built is, every game that isn't something super proprietary or big AAA title is pretty much being built with Unreal Engine, which Microsoft is all in on PC things now. They at least appear to be. So to me, it seems like Epic is in kind of a great situation where Sony loves them. Microsoft is not going to have a choice to love them if they want to continue to forge into the PC gaming market. Epic's going to surpass both of these companies inevitably. I mean, they're making the technology behind all of it. It appears. Why would you develop a proprietary engine in 2020?
Yeah, and I think that we've seen and we've talked about Epic so much as far as Unreal Engine and their advancements that they're doing that are so far beyond all their other engines at this point, to where you look at Unity, you look at just these other private engines, they're really struggling to keep up with what Epic's able to do. And I think that Epic has gone to both companies and, long before we saw that video, of course, and said, hey, here's the kind of stuff we're going to allow to do that's so groundbreaking and is so far beyond any other engine that I think Sony instantly latched onto it. Because Sony, I think, has always been about trying to make make games look prettier than Xbox. That seems to be, they've always tried to make it just look better. Like if you want the one that looks the best, go with Sony. And I think they're trying to maintain that going forward, where I think Microsoft's kind of doing the opposite. I think that they're going more for a interchangeable PC/console, that I think is going to be less about getting specialized hardware and making it look as good as possible, and going with more with you develop on one thing that kind of works on the PC, works on console, less of a variance so that it's easier to develop the two at the same time. I just personally think that's kind of how they're going, where PlayStation says, we'll do everything possible. We don't care. It doesn't have to be compatible with the PC. We want to make it to where it runs as well as possible and looks as good as possible, so that we're the console that people, if they want a beautiful game, they'll go to us. And I think I think they will. I think personally, I think that there's a good chance that they will look better if they integrate things with Unreal Engine that Xbox is unable to do. But I have heard people that saying they've run tests and an Xbox could have run that preview that they did. So that's just what I've been told, that it could have run that demo of Unreal Engine 5.
Judd says some of the proprietary engines are just about on par with Unreal. We just don't hear about it like Unreal. For example, Frostbite is supposedly right up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now for the big AAA studios that already have an engine that they can continue adding to, makes sense. But outside of Activision Blizzard and who is Frostbite EA? I think. I think the Frostbite engine comes from some sort of EA arm. To me it just seems like Epic is just completely owned this. I know this is nothing shocking, but Epic is just going to completely own this market.
Yeah. And I think that it will take these other groups a long time, because this is Epic money and this is Fortnite money. They make so much more than other studios do, or for game engine developers do, that it's not really comparable to what they're able to invest into the engine. And we're seeing the results of it. I mean, with that new development, demo that they did, we saw things that I've seen nothing close to it on any other engine. And it's because they're able to invest billions if they want to, because they're making billions back into the engine. How is Unity able to do that? They're not making enough money.
What? What do you mean?
Like, Unity is bringing in a percentage of sales, just like Epic is. They're bringing a percentage of sales of the games that are developed under it. Unity doesn't have another product on the side that's bringing them in billions of dollars. They can't. They can't take a risk and invest $1 billion into their engine, because they don't most likely have it. They have a much lower operating. So if they want to really tackle, let's say like RTX, they can invest into getting good RTX on their ray tracing onto their engine. But they're not going to be able to then invest money into all these other things like Epic is doing, where they're doing this thing where you don't need to worry about poly counts. You don't need to. I mean, it's drastically different. And so I think that's where we're going to see the fruits of Fortnite. And I've been saying this for at least a year now. I mean, I've said this plenty of times. But Fortnite is pushing the limits of games currently, because and Unreal Engine is going to be so far advanced. And then these other studios, if they want to be a relevant game engine anymore, not just be as Judd says, made for side scrollers, they're going to have to seriously make changes and really push the limits and try to come up with things that Epic doesn't have. So this is capitalism. That the beauty of it is we see the benefits of two companies competing with one another. And I think that right now we see one that's so far ahead, and they're pushing. As long as they keep pushing to stay far ahead, it's going to keep going forward. But I'm hoping the other engines pick it up and try to catch up, because that's just going to be better for everybody. All the games are going to benefit from it.
Yeah, Judd, I think sarcastically says Unity has the side scroller market, though, and I would agree for certain kinds of games. For example, I believe 2D games, Brian, make a lot more sense to do in Unity. I believe it's got much better base support for that than Unreal does.
It's easier. It's easier to develop under initially, especially for newer developers. It just feels a little simpler, but you can tell the difference when you look at the engine and the end result. There's just the technology isn't quite there with the others. So
yeah. Well, interesting news coming out of Epic with Sony. But now Epic, Brian, of course, one of their other products is the Epic Games Store, and there is a report out this past week that, now again, this comes from Epic, so they can massage these numbers in the most favorable way to make it look as good as possible. But they're claiming that their PC gaming portal hit 61 million monthly active players on PC. It also says that it has an average peak concurrent player count of 13 million. Now, when you got to remember, Fortnite runs through the Epic Game Store, and I'm not saying that takes away from these numbers, but I would assume, Brian, upwards of 80, maybe even more % of these active concurrent players are people that are playing Fortnite.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine that they've got 20. I can't imagine 30% of the people using EGS are playing other games outside of Fortnite. It's got to be 10% or less. I can't see it being any other way.
Yeah, I mean, there is that definitely Fortnite is driving the biggest numbers, which, I mean, that says something else about Fortnite. Yeah. Fortnite is still going strong. It's still definitely competition in the market. There's a lot of other games coming out, but Fortnite still is holding on to a lot of players. I think they are, though, starting to pick up more and more people on their other platforms. I think people are starting to kind of accept them a little bit on the PC Game Store. They've given away enough games to where, people are going to be playing games on their platform regardless, because they have 15, 20 free games that they've been giving away since the beginning of the marketplace. So
yeah,
but I think that strategy has been working for them. I mean, that was their strategy we talked about originally going into this, is that the strategy is you get people to have games on your game store, then they'll load it and they'll play it, and then they'll be more, once they get to where they're used to playing it, then they'll be willing to go out and buy a game there too. I think you have to get it to where they have enough of an investment, 15, 20 games in there, to where they don't feel like they're throwing away Steam, by going to Epic a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that's the big fight. Because for me, that's a big challenge. I have so many games in Steam. It's difficult just to say, all right, well, I'm going to start using another store.
Yeah. Now for reference though, Steam averages between 14 and 20 million players a day. Epic, of course, is saying that they have 13. Brian, what they really need to do is provide a web interface like Steam does for the Steam and the stats page that Steam has. Because frankly, releasing an article every 6 months with your player counts is bullshit. If they want to be able to claim these, which is fine, the numbers are probably accurate, but if they want to claim these numbers, how hard is it to make something like this available? Obviously, it's not.
That's the thing, is I think that up until this point, they've been apprehensive too, probably because the numbers, if you compare them side by side, it's not going to, I mean, it's good for a new store, but it's hard to, when people are sitting there comparing you with a game store that's been around for 20 years.
But based on this article, they should release it, because Epic is,
I think they're now hitting a point where they may do that now, but I bet you that they'll roll it out with an API to where people can start querying the game store, because these are things they'll be releasing. And I think that rather than them posting or making a web page to say, here's statistics, I think they'll just release an API. Then you'll have things like Steam Spy and others like those querying and doing analysis and providing people with a bunch of information. I don't think Epic wants to make it. They'll just provide the tools to allow someone else to do it.
Yeah, PH is
PH says 2025 on the roadmap, which could be possible. You never know. Everything's been pushed back this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So Epic is kind of Brian, I would say they're kind of the golden boy of gaming right now. I mean, I know we've got to say this to get our advertisers' money in here from of course, Tim Sweeney himself. But they seem to be the train with unlimited fuel. I mean, they're just what's going to stop? I don't see anything stopping them. I mean, they've got you talk about all of the wind being against your back. I can't think of anything else. I don't see what could possibly slow Fortnite. is not, in my estimation, is not just going to cease to exist. It's been out for 3+ years now. It's incredibly popular. They are still doing their weird little event things that they do where they change the entire map and they have this crazy big event that happens. They can pretty much do it. To me, it seems like they can do whatever they want with in-game mechanics. Their audience really doesn't care. So I don't see what would stop the Epic train. I mean, I guess a big frivolous lawsuit maybe, but I can't think of. They would have to try really hard to shoot themselves in the foot. And with next generation consoles coming out, the Nintendo Switch has Unreal support. Obviously, the next Sony PlayStation, the PlayStation 5, is going to have serious Unreal support. PC gaming has probably never been at a high enough, or, a higher peak than it's been over the past couple of months with coronavirus and people being at home. There's literally everything going in their favor. They're owned by, they've got 40% of them are owned by Tencent, the largest video game company in the world.
So, I mean, which if they ever were struggling with money, there's an investment right there, which also we've talked about it before, gives them an inside road to China, which is a huge market. China. Because if anybody wants to get into China, they have to go through a company like this that has a relationship with the government. And Tencent is that company. So, and being that they're owned by, Epic is practically owned by the Chinese government at this point. They can get into China. That's a huge market, and they've already removed. They probably love this. They removed the cop cars. They don't have to do it twice. All these things kind of fit along with it. But who knows? We'll see it going forward. We'll see.
Speaking of our overlords, we do have some Tencent news, Brian. They are in. Tencent is in talks to buy a Hong Kong gaming firm by the name of Liu. I'm not sure exactly how it, but the big title that they make is Warframe, which is a very popular game. Which would be again another huge. By the way, published by Sony, developed by this Digital Extremes company, which is the subsidiary of Liu. I would make the exact same argument I just made for Epic, and now just substitute the word Tencent. What's going to stop them? I guess the only thing would be the Chinese government, but since they have a huge stake in it.
Since you bring that up, I will say one thing that can stop them. The concern I have, where I think Epic is treading on very delicate ground, is, let's say, relations between China and the U.S. Dwindle.
Yeah.
And because, just to be honest with people, once again, go do your own research, but I'm going to point you in a little bit of the right direction here. There is a large amount of the Chinese government purchasing companies inside the United States for various political reasons. If the U.S. government, for instance, Locklear brings up TikTok, they purchased power companies, meat production companies. They've purchased things that are very structurally important to the United States.
I found out something. Well, you talk about being structurally important, Brian. Did you know that Budweiser beer is owned by a Chinese company?
This was last week we learned this. Yes.
Yeah, my Bud
On
Light,
the show
Brian,
we learned this.
No, this was in the post show. My Bud Light, Brian.
Sorry, people don't know.
My blue canned American beer that I thought was hell yeah. Found out they've been owned by a Chinese company since like 96.
I know, because you were saying in the post show, you were like, yeah, it's America. And I was like, wait, no, it's not America. It's China. You're like, what?
Yeah, I feel like a real
America's beer
jackass.
owned by China.
That was,
so that's
talk
the
about
thing
a morale deflator.
One of those moments.
Locklear says I've been guzzling Marxism all along. Well, hey, if the shoe fits. but in all seriousness, well, for example, Brian, kind of in a somewhat related thing, Britain announced that they are banning Huawei. They just announced this either yesterday or today. And there have been talks in the United States, of course, about Huawei. They are one of the.
We already did. We have.
Yes,
banned
but
Huawei.
not. But we haven't actually.
It's been a while.
We haven't
but
actually.
Certain things.
Yes.
Well, there's certain equipment that we do not allow in the United States infrastructure, because this is another thing. They will. They as PH brings up, they ban their 5G equipment.
That's what they did in Great Britain.
This
yes,
is,
sir.
Yeah, and this is something that in the United States, there's certain equipment, there's certain phones, because there was a lot of, they strategically purchased into the market to be able to produce certain equipment that is fundamental for the internet, as far as the routing and the high level backbone equipment. So this is something that the United States government did limit. They said, you cannot ship those in the United States. We will not use those because there's too much of a high chance of backdoor things into it. So that is something that I fear, that there may be moves to start blocking China from owning companies in the United States. Well, where is that going to put Epic when they're primarily owned by a Chinese company?
Yeah. I want to thank our friend Izzy Trippin for the 6-month resubscription here on Twitch. Thank you very much, Izzy. I'm just going to read this article real quick from Brian, the LA Times here. It says, Britain backtracked Tuesday on plans to give Chinese telecom company Huawei a limited role on the country's new high-speed mobile phone network. This decision is likely to add increasing things between London and Beijing. Britain said it is imposing the ban after U.S. sanctions made it impossible to ensure the security of Huawei equipment, forcing it to start turning to other suppliers for components. The only other supplier, I believe, is Nokia, which is, I believe, a Japanese company. So Nokia and Huawei, I believe, are the only two people that have made are making 5G radios to put on towers. And right now, Huawei being banned by Britain, which is now it's just Britain, it's not the whole EU. But yeah, Brian, I would agree. You know, again, without getting overly political, if those relationships do, really deteriorate, I don't know how the United States would go about kicking out. I don't know how the United States. I guess they could technically seize the property. I don't know how that would work. How would the U.S. government tell Epic to divest? I'm not sure how that would work. But I guess they could do whatever the hell they wanted. So, with national security.
That would be a very tricky situation.
Yeah,
it is a very possible and real thing that could happen. It could be. It's really hard to say. The problem is we're so linked because they own so much of our debt and they own so many of our companies. It would be a very risky thing to do. So who knows? But that is a risk because there are a lot of underhanded things happening from the Chinese government at the moment, to where they could say, you're no longer allowed to own because what people don't realize is it's not individual companies purchasing American companies. This is the Chinese government purchasing American companies. The Chinese government owns many, many companies and things in the United States. It's very different than how our government works.
Yeah. I believe, Brian, our friend Head Neophyte actually might be compromised. He said, my house is full of kids with Fortnite noises is full of Fortnite noises and kids yelling yeet. He said he's got a couple of kids over there. They're all playing Fortnite. So we're gonna have to keep a watch out on our friend Head Neophyte. He might be compromised. So we'll check in with him hopefully a little bit later on in the program. And that English is telling me that Anheuser-Busch was bought by a company from Belgium. I don't know what's happening. I was told.
Keep going. No, but you gotta, you gotta dig into it a little farther because that's the top news. But then if you look into it, it actually is China.
Yeah, that's the top news that's put on there by big government. It says Belgium. What it really means is China.
But because that company in Belgium is owned by a Chinese company. So the Chinese company bought a company in Belgium so that it would look legitimate, and then that company bought Anheuser-Busch so that it wouldn't say China opened a Belgian company, which is beer, right? It's fine to have beer made, or owned by a Belgian company, but not China. So, but it still is China in the end.
Well, thank you for that InfoWars. Thanks for that InfoWars update. We appreciate it.
Just letting you know.
Yeah. So we got that, and then Brian, also Tencent buys a company that you and I both support, and it's a smaller company, so we'll see what happens. But Tencent now after owning a bunch of stake in it, Tencent now completely owns Funcom, of course, which their most recent success was Conan Exiles, which was a huge success. So Tencent making a move on yet another small to medium-sized gaming studio. Well, I guess more of a medium-sized gaming studio in Funcom. I believe they own something like 30 or 40% of it. A while ago, they bought it up. Actually, it was back in January. Yeah, they bought a bunch of it. And then they went ahead and finally completed the transaction. They now own 95.11%.
So how long
of the
until
shares.
skulls are removed from Conan? Because the intro, there's lots of skulls throughout the game. How long until there are no longer skulls in the game?
I don't think that will change at all because Conan Exiles isn't in China. And that's the big difference, is we only see this being an issue on games that are published in those. Conan
Do you think
Exiles
that they will make a version for China now?
It doesn't seem like it. Conan Exiles doesn't seem to fit the fast-paced. We've talked about gaming over in parts of Asia, China and Japan specifically, is far different from what it is in the United States. Most people, that's why, for example, the Nintendo Switch and mobile gaming is so popular because people are so condensed into big, large cities. They live in incredibly small apartments. They don't have room for consoles, big computer setups. So I don't think so. Doesn't seem like Conan Exiles would be it doesn't seem like a Chinese game. Doesn't seem like a game that would fit that very well. Yeah.
They have 95.11% of the company now. So.
Oh yeah. They own a big chunk of it. Well, and they own the majority stake in the in the decisions of the company. I mean, they are now the majority shareholder.
So how about we talk, so much we're talking about China, how about we talk about some anti-cheat news that came up this week?
Oh, why do we have anti-cheat, Brian?
Well, we have anti-cheat because of China, for the most part.
Okay.
So Microsoft has been testing this new KDP anti-malware protection in Windows 10.
Ooh.
And what that is it's kernel data protection. And it tries to block malicious actors from corrupting drivers and running software in the Windows kernel, which is what a lot of times malware viruses will do, cheats, to be able to access a process, to access, for instance, the game and manipulate data and interact with it to where it can change what you're doing on screen. Perhaps seeing other players, doing, showing through walls, auto aiming your shots, things like that. So they are, and I actually mentioned this, I think a couple of years ago, in saying that it built into Microsoft's antivirus. They have been testing. It's been available to turn on, but by default off, the ability to kind of lock down your computer and not allow applications to so easily make changes, which is the first step. And I saw that was a beginning to tackling the anti-cheat in games. And this is them kind of moving forward with that as far as making it easier, more built into the operating system, make it to where it performs better, because in games, that's the most important thing, that it's more reliable. And they're working on an incentive for drivers and developers and vendors to start implementing into this and having it use some sort of virtualization, so where you can virtualize memory and block off access. So, for instance, the game will be separated into something that you can't just have other things kind of reaching in and accessing. So this is the beginning of them becoming more strict with their antivirus. And this would be, as I said a long time ago, this will be one of the only ways that they can truly knock down, not that they'll 100% be able to kill cheating, right? But I think this will be one of the first major moves forward into cutting down on people's ability to make cheats for games, because it will lock it down so tightly that your average person with these things turned on, first of all, will struggle to do it. And game developers can say, unless this is turned on in the operating system, they cannot run our game. Once it hits that point, it'll be difficult for anti-cheat or cheat makers to be able to trick it and still bypass this, because the operating system itself will be locked down fairly tight.
Can I play bad guy here for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
I've worked in IT now. Well, I mean, I've worked in IT for a while, but I've had a strictly IT only job for about 10 or 11 months now. And we deal with small to medium sized businesses, Brian, which is 98% Windows. That's what most small and medium businesses use for everything that they do. Windows Server, Windows 10, nevertheless. Do we want Microsoft and their ineptness with updates and the ability to fix issues when they arise, do we want them developing something like this that every game is going to use, and then what happens when a Windows update comes out and breaks something? That's my only concern. Is that a concern? Maybe it's not a concern. But Microsoft's biggest concern with their operating system is sure as hell not going to be anti-malware protection for video games, right? That is a very small sector of their user base. It's large, but it's not their businesses. It's not their enterprise users. It's not their big time organizations.
But I think they realize the only way to combat cheating is this method, and they're the only ones who can do it. I mean, they make the operating system. They're the only ones who can lock it down to this level.
Yeah. Now, PH says, I'd rather have Microsoft's kernel lock than Tencent / Valor inspired. I'm not disagreeing with that. My point is, Microsoft doesn't just do updates for things. Very rarely do you get hot fixes. And Windows updates do not come out regularly for everybody. People delay their updates. Yeah. I'm a little concerned. I'm very concerned that Microsoft rolls this out. They sell the developers this big basket of cookies. Oh, look at all these great things, and then they screw some things up, and now you can't watch any game. And then a quarter of the people
aren't able to play.
You can't watch a game. It's going to say, "Oh no, game can't launch." The KDP
well, and
not
how many
running.
times have you had it? Yeah, where a service stops running or something breaks and it won't start. A service, and then you can't get your antivirus working properly. That is the downside. Just like, someone at the beginning of the show was mentioning how they were having an issue with, I think it was BattleEye, and it wasn't launching correctly. That is the same issue with this. They're going to have to get it stable enough, their updates stable enough, and get everybody running current updates to work. Because I think it's going to come down to, if you are playing games, you're going to have to be current on your updates. It's going to hit that point to where they're not going to allow people to be out of date playing games. And they're not going to allow them to have antivirus turned off. They're not going to, they're going to come up with a list of things to where if those boxes are checked, most likely you're unable to cheat in the game with, your normal injections and things like that.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to say the least. I'm not stepping back on any of the conversations we've had in the past. I do think something like this is necessary. I just hope and pray that Microsoft takes this seriously enough, and that if developers hop on board, they don't get shafted by a feature update, which has been known to happen literally as long as Microsoft Windows has existed as a product. So I agree. This is the way anti-cheat stops, but Microsoft is known to butcher things beyond belief.
Because BattleEye causes issues. All of these easy anti-cheat causes issues.
Brian,
there's so many issues by these.
Operating system.
Yeah, I think that the number of they're probably counting on, okay, we have plenty of other issues with all these other ones. If it's built into Microsoft, we have one person we can go complain to. And they then, if a majority of the game development studios are using Microsoft's, they're going to have a high incentive to keep that thing running smoothly, because they'll have, if they break it in a Windows update, they'll have almost every gamer that uses PCs screaming and saying Microsoft sucks. And if it got bad enough, you then they would start saying, hey, we should run other operating systems to run games. Like, they would run a risk of making sentiment towards Microsoft go down quite a bit to where other operating systems would be viable.
People should.
So I just don't see them. I don't see them doing it.
People should switch to Temple OS.
Yeah,
that's my recommendation. Temple OS, check it out. Do a quick Google search if you're curious of what Temple OS is. It's a very interesting operating system.
All right.
So we have that, and then now there's another one here, Brian, about BattleEye client emulation. I'm just going to read a little bit from this article here. It says the popular anti-cheat BattleEye, which is widely used by modern online games such as Tarkov, is considered an industry anti-cheat by many. In this article, I will demonstrate. This is from a tweaker, a traditional hacker. I will demonstrate a method that I have utilized for the past year, which enables you to play any BattleEye protected games online without even having to install a BattleEye. And he goes through the process of different thing. It's above my knowledge level. But he shows videos. He shows Fortnite, Insurgency, Tarkov, all these different games, and he's actually got a GitHub repository. The project's called Bottli, Bottli, and it's the GitHub project that essentially tricks these games into believing that BattleEye is running. It's not even installed. It's not that it's not running. It's literally not even on your computer. So, and apparently this has been going on for a year. So now the fact that he's publicized this, I will assume that it will be resolved.
Patched.
But how many other of these things exist out in the wild? And
the main thing with this for me is a justification for Microsoft's way of doing it. The fact that this anti-cheat service was able to be 100% bypassed, undetected, is just an indicator
for over a year.
For over a year, that this is not the way to do it.
Yeah, and it's pretty clever how they did it. Is what they've actually done is that they've essentially created a fake BattleEye client that responds to, because the game sends a request to BattleEye. It gives
the right answers, but it's not actually checking anything.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So it's constantly, it knows what the game is looking for, and it responds back to the right thing, and the game goes, okay, you're good. You're not a cheater. Even though you literally could be cheating, this fake client is going to be telling the game, the server, the engine, no, everything is fine.
I think it's going to come down to Microsoft and engine developers partnering to where the tools are built into the engine to be able to say, without being tricked like this, is antivirus turned on? Are these settings enabled? And the thing is, it's got to be important that they can't do something like this and bypass it. That's because if you can bypass it in any way, that makes it totally ineffective. So if they can lock down the operating system enough, then we won't have these sort of issues. Because how many people have been, we go into games and it's like BattleEye's constantly, every game with BattleEye has cheaters. Every game with Easy Anti-Cheat has cheaters. Like there's not a game out there that doesn't have cheaters. And I think that until we get the built in the operating system and locked down, which of course, as you said, has its downsides. I see the downsides, but the industry is going to have to bring itself up to, and Microsoft's going to have to bring itself up to the table and figure out how to put out Windows updates without breaking everything.
Yeah, well, I mean, Brian, that sounds like it sounds like an act of God you just described. I will not be holding my breath on that one. All right, that seems like about enough general gaming news. We got anything specific game wise here, Brian, that you that we need to talk about this evening?
Well, let's talk about. There's been another delay. 2020, the year of delays. This one's pretty big. Yeah, 2020, the year of delays. New World, which was supposed to be coming out in the next month or two. I mean, it was supposed to already be released, right?
Oh my God. This is crazy, Brian. I can't believe what you're telling me. That's my shocked face.
So we have another one that's a pretty big delay. They will not be releasing till spring of 2021 now. So pretty much almost a year from now, where it was supposed to be coming out spring of 2020. Then they pushed it to about now. It was supposed to be in like the next, like a month from now, or coming out. I think it was August. And now it's not going to be out until spring of 2021. So let me read to you why. And that's the date of their final beta test. So their final beta test will be spring of 2021. We're passionate about the game we've been making and want to add more features and content before we share it with a wider audience. As a thank you to the community, we will be providing a special opportunity for our beta sign-in and pre-order customers, plus our alpha testers, thank you, to play the full game of New World in its current state for a limited period of time on August 25th. So you can play it on that day if you have pre-ordered or somehow have access. We will send you an email directly to those customers. So, okay, you'll be able to see where it's at right now, which would be nice because it'd be nice to see if there's actual decent progress up to this point, to where then I could say, all right, well, this is good, but almost a year's worth of development, that'll be that much better. MMOs are huge. PH says there's no content, which that's the danger when you're doing this. I've mentioned this before. Level design is very difficult to do when you're not together on a network. I'm sure this is Amazon, so I'm sure they have made tools and have tools to be able to do this. But this whole thing of working remotely is not optimal for game development, and so but that doesn't justify this. But I think that for them, they're wanting to compete. This does make more sense as far as if they're trying to compete with WoW, because this is after WoW releases their new expansion, and there's a chance for people to quit playing that and then be ready for something else if it flops. But this is a pretty big delay. But this is an MMO, so I can understand. It's not like most games. There should be tons and tons of content in here. If there is no content, well, hopefully in the year they can actually produce content and get it in there. PH is saying there's no dungeons, no raids.
Brian,
yeah.
I will say to you, and I don't want to come off as a jerk, this is why, precisely the reason why I am managing my expectations for Cyberpunk 2077. Precisely why. You are talking about Amazon, who has got more money than God, has got more resources than God. And now, obviously, they're a new studio, so I get that. But it's not a money issue.
Yeah.
It's not a resource issue. It is, I agree with you, game development remotely is probably a huge pain in the ass. But this, to me, is just yet another piece of the puzzle in managing expectations for new games. You're talking you're talking about like an 8 or 9 month delay. That is not justified due to coronavirus. This started 4 months ago.
And that's the thing is, I think it very little has to do with coronavirus. I think they have such a giant project that they're just behind. I think they got behind partially because of coronavirus, but I think that they've realized that there's just no chance they could have pumped it out in a month.
But again, it comes down to the timing, Brian. I do not believe it is appropriate for them to wait literally 6 weeks before game launch and delay it by 8 months. They should have delayed this back in March. They knew damn well this wasn't going to get done. They lost less than 4 months. Even if they stopped working completely in March when like the entire world shut down, it would not have justified an 8 or 9 month delay. Yeah. Is this game even ever going to come out? I mean, seriously.
Spring 2021. This is Amazon, so I think they're willing to throw as much money into it. But I think they'd be willing to walk away from a project because money isn't so much the issue.
Yeah.
Unless it's a huge disaster, I don't think they'll walk away. I think they'll just, for them, there's no rush. It's not like they have a budget to maintain. I think that's why they're saying, hey, we'll wait a year. What's the difference? We'll wait a year. If it means that we'll actually make more money that way, then we'll wait a year. They're not a struggling studio or a studio that has to meet some sort of a funding requirement here. They're building a game studio, and I bet Amazon wants to come out swinging. I think they want to have an amazing game. And PH brings up this New World equals Daybreak devs. What did you expect? Well, there we go. It's kind of true.
Yeah, but I mean, in agreements as CD Projekt Red, they're a proper studio. I get it, but I get it. All I'm saying is manage expectations, ladies and gentlemen. That is all, plain and simple.
Yeah. Well, and we'll see going forward. I mean, how many more games can we have delayed this year? It seems like almost every single game that we have talked about that's supposed to be coming out has delayed this year.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these new I don't foresee these consoles coming out with wide enough not distribution, but wide enough production to even be available to everybody by the end of the year. Normally, consoles are hard to get your hands on.
Well, and
Apple announced they're delaying their iPhones.
This is going to be a very weird year because I mean, you've mentioned like when is a console ever released under these conditions? It's
never.
It's an unprecedented time. Yeah. I'm not sure how this console release is going to go. I mean, they're going to get them out there, but it's just the games are being delayed. Games aren't being launched on release of the console like we were expecting. Like it's all this stuff is just it's week to week the news. How do you plan for a console release when you don't know what studios are going to actually have games out for your console?
Yeah.
I mean, launch titles. How do you start making the bundles to be able to make a package to go on launch day with whatever games when you don't even know if the game's going to be released? It could be delayed past your console. Yeah, now, I mean, they're in a really weird spot where normally you'd be able to say, all right, we will have this game ready to put in the packaging with this box by this date so you can ship it to, Best Buy and all these places so they can buy this exclusive titled version of console. I don't think they'll be able to do that unless it's an already released game. I think this will be one of the first times that they don't have console release exclusives. I think we're going to see Fortnite consoles, and I think it's going to be all existing games because they can't risk getting that close to the date without a guarantee that game is going to be out.
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to do a Cyberpunk one? Cyberpunk is down to the wire as far as the date. What if they push it out 1 month? Then they're screwed.
Yeah. Honestly, I will be shocked if consoles actually come in. They'll come out. I'll be shocked if they're available to buy this year.
Oh, I think consoles will be out, but I just think it'll be in a very different...
They'll be out, but are there going to be any of them available for people to buy, Brian? I mean, it's great if they're out, but if Microsoft and Sony haven't been able to produce enough, and you can't buy one, they might as well not be.
Are the factories running at 100% in China and Japan?
No.
In all these places where they're producing these things?
I doubt it.
I mean, if they're not running at 100%, how are they going to produce enough consoles where it's already like...
That's my point.
You're barely making enough.
Yeah, that's my point.
So do you have Green Man says put it in the book. Should we
put
in the book that there won't be any exclusive launch titles that there aren't going to be any new titles released with the console? As far as like a boxed version of like Red Dead, like how I got the Red Dead version. I don't think there'll be like a Cyberpunk one that goes on release. I think it'll be after.
I don't think there typically is anyway.
Is there
I'm
not?
trying to think of the Xbox One. I don't remember there being I bought a launch Xbox One with a game, but it was not a specific console.
Oh, he means that New World is the last game Amazon ever will make. I don't think that's true. Is that what do you think that?
No, I got personal. No, I need to comment on a personal attack in the chat here, Brian, that says you would pre-order the new COD and not manage your expectations. No, not at all. I've made it very clear. I'm a sucker. I'll buy any COD. I've made it very clear. I don't say I don't have any shame in that, but I'm not going to sit here and jerk Activision off about how it's going to be the greatest game ever made. I like Call of Duty. I'm a fanboy. I'll spend $60. If it's great, great. If it sucks, it sucks. It's a risk I'm willing to make. And in the case of Modern Warfare, I have never played a COD this late into its... Brian, I am still playing it 5+ nights a week.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Which I have not done since I was probably 12 years old, which wasn't that long ago. But since Modern Warfare,
practically started the show about that time.
Yeah, I mean, I was like 16, I think, or something, or 17, somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah. So, I don't know why I brought that up, but I was personally attacked. But I don't have a prediction on New World. I think this is a word to the wise about anything that you're expecting to come out this year.
Okay.
And by the way,
I think this year's going to be a really, really weird year.
Brian, here's a hot take without sounding like a science denier. Wouldn't video game development where you literally sit at your own little like cube thing, like where you're kind of in your complete own world, wouldn't that be one of the best jobs, desk jobs to have to be able to work at? Because in most cases, you are collaborating, but not physically collaborating. Like you're a modeler.
They just need to be on the same network is all that really matters, right?
I mean, again, I haven't spent any time inside of a game, inside of game development, but I've watched plenty of those documentary of the short documentaries of the making of a game, and people seem to be pretty well secluded, so that 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 excuse to me kind of doesn't make sense. Even smaller studios, you see them, they've just, everybody's got desks and they just kind of hang out.
Yeah. And well, okay. Yeah. I was going to make a comment about, I'll keep out of the infection rates. We'll keep out of that. We'll talk about that in the post show.
Yeah. Post show. Do we have a game giveaway?
Yes. So if you do ! giveaway in chat, and I'm going to be giving away a copy of Turok 2 Seeds of Evil. It's currently a $20 title. And I'll put a link into the chat. This is a first-person shooter action classic. Dinosaurs Violent is the tags for this. So this is one where it's got very positive ratings. It's Turok. There's that dinosaur one that was Turok, and this is Turok 2. Similar games are Half-Life 2 and Call of Duty Black Ops. So similar to those games that I played. I don't know how those two games are similar than being a first-person shooter. Yeah, kind of. Interesting. There you go.
Well, the more you know. Well, Brian, we haven't talked about him in a couple of weeks here, but the Dr. Disrespect man is still MIA. And there's a very odd report from a very not super reputable website app I was researching. But nevertheless, apparently there's some rumors now circulating that he is going to be going to Spotify. Brian. I don't seem... Now, apparently, a couple of months ago, Spotify made a comment that in... late summer of 2020 that they were going to try to get into the video streaming service. And it now Dr. Disrespect apparently was banned for something that he did, because there was some comments made on, he donated to a streamer and the streamer said, I know why he was banned. I'll tell you in 2 months, which kind of indicates that, all right, there's some sort of NDA or something that is causing that. The 2 months, a very specific time.
Okay. Well, when is Joe Rogan moving to Spotify?
September, I think.
July, August, September.
Yeah, to me, that seems like a terrible idea for Dr. Disrespect.
Well, okay. What if they're okay? Let's go down this rabbit hole a little bit.
Sure.
Why would Joe Rogan be going to Spotify other than the money?
Well, I know why. I know. I'm pretty sure I know why he's going to Spotify.
Okay. What do you think?
I mean, my personal opinion.
Besides the money.
No, well, my personal opinion on it is that he can go to Spotify, get a guaranteed paycheck, not have to worry about getting canceled by his which, by the way, his advertisers are like Manscaped and Traeger grills, which are not companies that are, pussy whipped SJW companies. But to me, it seems like he's going there because he's much less susceptible to be canceled, which is, as we're living in the year of the cancellation. To me, it seemed like a no-brainer for him. He can make $100 million and not have to worry about dealing with the hate parade coming down and trying to cancel him. That's my opinion.
What if Spotify's business approach is coming to these people and saying, we will provide you a platform where you don't have to worry about all this other stuff. We're not going to be like
Spotify's.
We're not going to be like YouTube.
No, that's a lie. They proved that they're not that platform. They've banned podcasts that they don't like.
Yeah, that's true.
But
I'm saying, what if they're promising these guys that they don't have to worry about it?
Well, they might be, but then they're fucking liars. They're liars.
Yeah, and I don't think your average person, but these guys. What if they're just saying, hey, there's stability here. We're going to provide you a platform. You can speak about whatever you want within reason, right? You don't have to worry about, because look at Joe Rogan cannot monetize his videos on YouTube because of the topics that he discusses. He can't monetize them because the whole monetization game on YouTube is a big game. It's just something that you're constantly having to do all these things to people who produce solely on YouTube are constantly using code words and doing all these games so that they don't get automatically flagged. Yeah. Joe Rogan, he's not going to change the conversation for that. Right. So he can't monetize on that platform. So why is he on there? he might as well go to a platform where he can monetize. And they probably are going to allow him to have sponsors anyways, some certain forms of sponsors. So he's doing nothing but gaining $100 million or whatever it was.
Yeah.
For nothing. He's going to be able to do the exact same program. He's just not going to put it on YouTube where he couldn't monetize anyways. I think the only thing they could do was make those little like short clips, where you go through and they can edit it and get out, certain topics and make sure it's something they could monetize. But that was it. That's all they could. They couldn't put their actual show up there without it being, unlisted.
Well, so I think it was announced. It's not in the notes, but Ninja's going to Facebook. He announced that this past week, so that's official. He's going to Facebook.
Did he? Because what's odd is he streamed on YouTube.
Oh no, excuse me. He's going to YouTube. I apologize. You're absolutely right.
Okay.
He's going to YouTube. The presumption is he's going to YouTube. He started streaming on YouTube, so I would assume he's made a deal with them. Maybe he's just testing the waters. I'm not sure. But I would be very surprised if I think this article's beyond ridiculous. I don't think there's any legitimacy in this. I cannot believe it's illogical to me. They don't have the they don't have the platform for it. They don't have a website. The only way you're going to be able to watch somebody is to download an app on your computer.
I think they're going to be rolling it out with these big names. That's the thing, is because they're going to have something for when Joe Rogan, because they don't have a video platform right now. They're going to have to roll out something on Spotify to be able to handle this. And I think that's what they want. Right. I think they want to have big names.
You might
so that when they roll it out, there's a reason to go there. I mean, they want the big automatic audiences, because look at how many people watch Dr. Disrespect, how many people watch Joe Rogan. They want those masses of people coming that then will see the other things, because that's a reason for you to put your platform on Spotify, because the people, when they're done watching those live streams, then they'll see who else is streaming and branch off of that. But they need to bring someone to get those numbers there. Because you're not going to do it with these people streaming to 20 people.
By the way, we are on Spotify. You can search for Infection Podcast and actually listen to us there. So something to keep an eye out for.
Yeah. Very good. So we'll see. I mean, there's still very little. The whole thing with like Nick Merckx, it was some account, which I don't know that he can log into because he was banned. I don't think he can log into and comment with his main account.
Yeah.
But so I'm assuming this is some fake name, but that'd be so easy for anybody to fake that. I just don't put credit into a $50 donation with a message and a name that seems like Dr. Disrespect, where people are saying, oh, but he talks like him. There's people that worship the guy that could come up with a sentence that sounds like Dr. Disrespect. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't see any kind of, and why would he pick his stream, and not do it? Dr. Disrespect would do it in a little bit different way. He wouldn't just go onto a random guy's stream and make a single donation post. I just don't think I don't think that's it.
Pro tip: don't die. Saying the last podcast on the left, which is a very which is a popular podcast, is on Spotify, and they've been there exclusively since February. They do, and I think we talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago. The problem Spotify's problem is their business model, Brian. Everything that you do on Spotify costs them money. Any song you listen to, they have to pay for it. So even though you spend $9 a month or $10 a month on your subscription or $15 a month, every time you open the app and do anything, Spotify has to pay for it. The licensing, not even including the bandwidth or the other things, but they have to pay on licensing. If they can own these people, like the last podcast on the left, like Joe Rogan, like Dr. Disrespect, they don't have to pay for those services. They own them. When you own the content, you don't pay for the content. Now you pay for it on the back end, but you're investing it in yourself instead of paying it out to BMI and ASCAP, which are the 2-bit and CSAC, the 3 big music licensing companies that exist in the United States. So it makes sense for Spotify because they're not making money, Brian. Now obviously they're gaining their taxes like every other, like Amazon that doesn't pay any federal income tax, but their business model, they are not selling anything to you. They are the medium for other people's products. That's essentially what Spotify is. That is not that is not sustainable forever. You can't just resell other people's crap forever.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work.
They're gonna have
you
to
can't
figure
make
out
enough money.
Yeah. it'll be interesting to see how they're going to rework their business model, whether it's advertisers. I assume they're trying to create a platform that will attract certain advertisers. I mean,
well, they have a strong ad network, but I pay for Spotify, so I don't get ads. But I can listen to as much music as I want, and they've got to pay pennies on the dollar to royalty holders, and that's very expensive, Brian. Your company can't be taking a little bit of money from me and then paying a little bit out to somebody else for everything you do. It's just not sustainable. It's just not. You can't scale, and that's why Spotify doesn't make any money.
Yeah.
So
I'm assuming they have some plan. They've got to have something that justifies throwing out that much money to Joe Rogan.
Yeah. Well, and the Joe Rogan thing will be he's the most listened to podcast in the world. So, well, maybe not the world, but definitely in the United States. So
I think he is the biggest podcast there is currently.
Yeah. I would agree. So, there you go. That is potential news. More news on Mr. Dr. Disrespect, possibly to Spotify.
All right. So there's been some news with Valve, just some things written about Valve and their recent release of Alex, where...
What is Alex?
They said so that was their VR game that was based on Half-Life.
Very cool.
Released.
Yeah. Very
but
good reviews.
Says at least they canceled at least 5 Half-Life projects before Alex. So they're still, and I have another article discussing how Valve employees still want to build a full-scale non-VR Half-Life game.
I think it's a terrible idea.
Reasoning, one thing they did mention is the reasoning for them canceling a lot of these other projects is because their Source 2 engine was not finished. It was not ready for these. But, one other reason not to develop your own in-house engines, because when you're as casual, one thing you learn about Valve is they take things very casually. They don't do deadlines. Look at their card game they released. That was a disaster. Like, they just don't take it very seriously. They'll release something that's pretty good. That's good. The Portal series. That was amazing. But have they tried to do anything since then? No. But there's all these other games. And one thing about their internal structure that people don't know is it's very loose. Like, they let people work on what they want to for a lot of things. And that's probably why, there's people saying, hey, we want to work on this if we can commit enough time to it or get justification. So, but they've canceled all of these. Even they were working on Half-Life 3 and they canceled it.
I have said this a bunch
2014
on this show, and I've gotten backlash for it, but I'll say it again. I don't believe a Half-Life 3 makes any sense. I don't think anybody would actually play it. I think it is the meme that everybody would play it. I think you would find, not that nobody would play it, of course, that's ridiculous, but you would find out that, that many people actually aren't really interested in buying a, $40 or $50 Half-Life game. It's more of just an internet meme.
Personally, I think also their engine is too far behind to be able to release something that is like just jaw-dropping. Where I think before with Half-Life, it was cutting edge enough. Their engine was new enough. It was cutting edge enough to where they released it and people were like, oh, this is amazing. Like, this is better than most games. They really would struggle to compete with, the upcoming GTA, Red Dead, list off all these games that just look beautiful, perform very well. I just don't think they have it in them. That they play around with projects. Once in a while, they'll come up with something cool and they'll release it. But I just don't think they take it serious enough to really put out a game that's really well done. Alex seemed like it'd be cool, but do you hear people talking about it all the time now? It's not like the game to play.
No, not
the
now.
VR is a very limited platform.
It is. A lot of people did. It got
initially
incredibly well reviewed. Yeah, because it was a short game relatively, which is like all VR games for the most part. But I heard many, many things, Brian, about it being the best VR game that people have ever played.
That's
before.
out there, yeah.
But I don't think there's a market. I don't think there's a market for a Left 4 Dead 3 or a Half-Life 3.
Yeah,
Portal 3 is probably about the only game I would say would make sense.
Yeah.
We're in a different era of
Because
gaming, dude. You're talking about games that were popular
Yeah.
20 years ago. We're in a completely different era of gaming. And you know damn
I think
well if they were to come out with a
I-
Half-Life, it'd be full of microtransactions or loot boxes or some other sort of bullshit like that. It's not gonna.
That's
It's
where I think
not gonna be
Portal
what you want.
Portal as the VR game would be very good. I think that
That'd be
Portal,
super
a lot
trippy.
of it. Yeah, I think that Portal as a VR game would be very unique because it fits perfectly. It's almost like they made the original Portals as the VR game.
Well, it would be cool, but the way that you drop from ceilings and stuff would
And
probably
you
not
jump
be
and
good.
fly through stuff. It would be crazy. And
It
that's
would
probably
probably
why
make
they
you
haven't really
very sick.
it makes people, yeah, it probably makes people very nauseous, so they don't do it.
Could you imagine? Because I mean,
But
if you've played
It seems
Portal,
like they
sometimes
originally made it for VR. It seems like
Yeah.
just the mechanics. It seems like it was made for VR, but I think they found that you move too much. You do too many things that just don't work.
Yeah, I mean, in Portal, like you will shoot a thing up in the air and drop all the way down. That in VR would be
Make people
for me.
nauseous.
It would be terrifying. I don't like heights.
Yeah.
That would be absolute. I could not think that. That's probably one of the worst things I can think of. Portal in VR.
But
and PH,
if
of
they
course, is
could
bringing
ever-
out. PH is saying, of course, it's a single player game. Not many people play the same game more than once. Exactly. It is. We're in a far different gaming environment than we were with Half-Life. Half-Life and Half-Life 2. We're just.
Yeah.
Look at how popular CS:GO is. You talk about polar opposites. Half-Life and Counter-Strike. Completely polar opposites. So,
Yeah.
will it happen at some point? I'm sure, but I think there's a reason. There's a reason that the project was scrapped, and I think it's multiple things, including what PH, of course, just brought up, that it's a single-player game, and that is.
I mean, I can already imagine the hate and the vitriol that people would give on the internet if they did release one of these games, because it won't match the expectations of people's memories. It just can't.
No, never.
We will see. All right. Well, let's get into actual game news now.
Okay.
So first of all, PUBG, they released their 8.1 patch. This is, a lot of updates to some of the maps.
Mhm.
This is they're returning to Sandhawk. Season 8 is coming for this. One thing they've gone and updated a lot of the landmarks. So there's some before and afters of like boot camp, the quarry, and you can see that they have made some things look a little more natural. Made it to where you can actually play on some of the plateaus in the quarry. Some places, it seems like they kind of scrapped. Like, for instance, the airfield. I guess it does look like an airfield, but there's not really anything else there. The docks they turned into kind of a party area. It's no longer like a shipping dock, but it's now like a bar and like a resort. The ruins, they've made those much bigger and very different looking.
Oh yeah.
Mountain, same thing. They've kind of gone with a different structure of buildings. The cave, way different. The river has been updated. Looks much more like a jungle desert river as well, like the brown water.
Yeah, muddy water.
Makes more sense. Yep. And then some of these different locations, as far as like little towns, they've gone through and updated looks of those. Just overall, they've updated a lot of the look of the map, so that should be reworked. And then they've added the loot truck.
Oh yeah.
So
what is this? Fortnite?
So you can give players an additional, it says, albeit risky, way to gear up. Trucks spawn in one of several garages around the island and drive along roads, enticing players to attack them. As the trucks take damage, they'll drop some loot and continue on their way. So if you can destroy the truck, you'll get rewarded with an even bigger cache of weapons and gear. So there can be up to 4 loot trucks on the map at any one time, and they're all spawned separately. So
I can't wait.
And 4 at one time, 8 total across the whole match.
I can't wait for people to figure out how to like blow these things up with like a pebble in the road or something like that, where they find this weird thing.
And
You have to do one thing
everywhere.
and it blows up. No, well, the one benefit of this, of course, Brian, will be people will be trying to peg these things down all over the place, so you'll have shots to run towards. So hopefully it speeds up the game a little bit. I would say I can't think of another game that has I know Fortnite's got the loot llama, but those are static items. They dynamically spawn, but then they're in single locations. Presumably, these trucks are going to be loud, and it's gonna be a huge thing that people are going to be going after if the loot's, of course, anywhere near decent. So yeah, they'll be damaged with weapons and throwables. But it takes very reduced damage compared to other vehicles due to its heavy armor. Smaller, large lootable containers. So containers fall from the truck as it becomes damaged. So not loot like Fortnite. Upon being destroyed, of course, it'll say a large amount of loot, including possible exclusive weapon loot. Weapons are pre-skinned, specialty names, and they are decked out with attachments. So, yeah. They, by the way, not in ranked match. It's only in regular casual play.
Yep. Also, they have their Survivor Pass that they're putting out for Season 8.
Mm-hmm.
And, so this will have just things that you can win, equipment, gear, probably currency, things like that. And then they're adjusting some of the missions. They're also doing improvements to the gas can, making changes to matchmaking. And then, of course, all the things that come along with the new season as far as game mode updates and other things with rule sets and things like that. So a lot of changes. This is a pretty big change. Now, another thing that kind of followed this up is PUBG has sold over 70 million copies in 3 years. So that's something that they have announced. They've crossed the 70 million mark. So there's a lot of people with this game. So it seems like it's still going strong, and obviously they're putting out large content updates. So I think that they're probably doing pretty healthily right now. I mean, they've got an audience that plays it, whether, I don't know if it's in the United States or over in Asia, but they have a lot of people playing it.
Yeah, I mean, they're saying that they're still estimating between, about 10 million unit sales a year. So, I mean, it's not like they sold 70 million, they're trickling in 2 or 3 million. I mean, they're still pulling in a substantial amount of sales a year. And then, of course, that doesn't even reference PUBG Mobile. This is the PC and console versions of PUBG, which the PUBG Mobile version has already made $1 billion in revenue. So it works.
Yep. So we'll see how they keep going into next year, but they're doing really well now.
Yeah.
Another one, Ylands, we'll always pronounce it incorrectly for life. They put out their 1.35 goodie pack number 1.
No, what is this?
So they have an update that has a new weapon, new glasses, and some other items in there. So you can go in and get that. Yes, everybody wants a pineapple grenade.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a grenade. Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
Huh.
And then also, they've gone through and just done a regular update for this. They've created new items for creators and things like that. So not a huge update other than there are items and then a bunch of fixes that they have separately in another post. So if you're interested in that, you can go check them out, but there's about 10 fixes.
Cool.
So that's Ylands.
That is Ylands. I want to give a shout out here, Brian, to a to a long time friend of our show. He's been with us since the very, very early on parts of H1Z1. The gentleman behind the H1Z1 map, the PUBG map, these other maps. I think his name is Zanian. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, but he sent us a tweet this afternoon, Brian, of a link to a picture. Oh, now somehow I triggered my my smartphone assistant saying that. Not sure exactly what I said. Of a new application that has been filed in the United States for a company by the name of Wandering Monster Games. Now, off the top of anybody's head, that doesn't mean anything. But if you dig into it, this group is filing, and they're saying that the last applicant, the last owner, was Daybreak Games LLC. And the thought would be that maybe this is a company that is going to be working on Now, obviously, they split Daybreak off into, 3 different companies, but this is a new one. And not exactly sure what this is going to be.
Yes. So they've done okay. So first of all, Daybreak did those spin-off studios to handle certain titles, right?
Yes.
They had Dark Paw Games, Dimensional Inc., and Rogue Planet Games that were handling the EverQuest series, DC Universe Online, and Planet Side. And then H1Z1 remained under Daybreak. So I would assume either they are working on another title, or maybe they're going to be bringing in another title for them to manage, because that's what Daybreak kind of has become, is they manage games that are dying or not dying, maybe games that are in cruise control. Maybe I'll say that, to where that, they're not actively developed, but there's still a player base there. This could be that. I just have a feeling that maybe there's a game that's going to be brought in that they're going to start maintaining, and so they're bringing they're building the studio to do it, because they do a studio per title now. So I assume that's what it is. I don't think they're making a new game. I just can't imagine them doing that now.
I wouldn't think so. But you can go check out his website. It's gamermaps.net, and he's got maps for everything on here. This is the original H1Z1 map, folks. So thanks for the tweet. We appreciate it. I'm glad you're still. I'm glad somebody, Brian, is still keeping the hope alive. We had a couple of people jump into our ats on Twitter and say, no, it's not going to be anything else. But somebody out there is keeping the faith. We appreciate the tweet.
We'll see.
We got a tweet just from a gentleman about an hour ago, and says, I miss Just Survive so terribly, but before it was JS, back when it was survival, was the shit. Old times with the homies in the J4 area. Running distance.
And this was Zane, right?
Yeah, Zane.
Xain.
And then hiding Jeeps best we could, ramping trucks for fun. Shit, man, bring it back. Yeah. I have said this 1,000 times, folks, and I'm sorry to be the buzzkill, but you don't want... Well, that's fine. You don't want to play H1Z1. You do not want to play Just Survive. That game was an abomination. Rose-colored glasses are absolutely in full effect.
Yeah. I mean, because if you look, for instance, what's the game that we played that has it's a really good game, but just people aren't playing it. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's an open world survival game where you have there's like robots, not Xera, but the other one where they're like, you go to camps and there's giant robots, and it's the one where there's the crazy stats in it. Like as far as handling your health and your weight and what you eat.
I think it's Scum.
I'm trying to remember what. Scum, yes.
Oh, okay.
Scum. I mean, look at the quality level of Scum compared to H1Z1, and people aren't willing to play Scum. Yeah. They're not going to play H1Z1.
Exactly.
Thank you, Nick and PH, for getting that for me.
Fully agree. I love H1Z1. I loved it. I wore my shirt, Brian. I wore my other shirt to bed last night. My H1Z1 shirt. I'm packing, so I'm going through my shirts. I found my original H1Z1 shirt that says twitch.tv/landgun44 on the back. I was like, oh, okay. So I'll wear this to bed. I love it, but you don't want to play it. It was a terrible game. What was fun was the boys, and that's exactly what Ryan in this tweet is referencing. I miss the homies in the J4 area. That is exactly what you miss. You don't miss Just Survive. You miss your friends. You miss the cool people that you met during H1Z1. You don't miss H1Z1. It was a terrible game. It was an abomination.
Yeah.
Change my mind. You can't, because I'm right, and you know I'm right.
Yeah, that's true. Oh yeah. I mean, it was a good idea, implemented in the worst way possible.
Firebomb says this perfectly, and he's spot on. And I've dealt with this a little bit recently. I've been playing old games that I remember playing as a kid, and it's nowhere. The games are nowhere where I remember them. Sometimes memories of games are better than the games. Period. Leave H1Z1 in the past. It brought me to you guys. Well, I'm glad it brought you to us. For example, I played Sonic 2006 not Sonic 2006, Sonic Adventure on the Sega Dreamcast couple weeks ago. And I hadn't really played it since I was a young child. My grandfather had a Dreamcast, and I remember playing it, Brian. I loaded up that game and was like, what kind of janky piece of garbage did Sega release? That game is broken. I was glitching through the map. I was spinning all over the place. I was falling to my death walking through hallway. It was crazy.
Yep.
And I played it.
Rose-colored glasses for video games is always the best.
Yeah, and then I played it, and then I felt sad about my childhood. It was not a great, so I started drinking. For me, it wasn't heavy. It was not a great time.
For me, the same thing is when I go back and play Wolfenstein 3D, because that was my first video game that I purchased, and it was in the 90s. That going back, like, it's kind of fun to play for a little bit, but it's not anything like I remember. It's a lot of repetitive things, and just you're wandering halls and shooting people. There's no real story to it that you can really tell. But at the time, it seemed like the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. But the thing is, I need to leave it there, because that in its time was the most amazing thing that I had ever seen. When I sit there and try to replay, there are some games that are great to replay. Some, for me, not text adventure, but some of the adventure games, some things that a lot of thought, and like the Mad Max. I like just a lot of these games. There were some really good ones that came out, but I enjoyed them then.
Oregon Trail.
I think if I went back now, Oregon Trail was pretty fun. But I think if I went back now, I'd be like, this, I just can't do it. This is no fun. Like, it's just nothing compared to what we're used to.
Exactly. So
there are some. Green Man brings up Baldur's Gate, really good. You've got Skyrim. Some of the older ones of that series. Skyrim even is fairly old. Those are very well made, and a lot of them they've been going through and refixing the graphics up to where they are playable because the content was so good. The graphics didn't keep up. They fixed that. I think the ones that are capable, they'll go and redo. But if it was one that was just kind of a crappy game when you go back and play it, they're not going to bother with it.
Yep. So as we've done in the past, we'll pour another one out for Daybreak and H1Z1 and Just Survive. And you can check him out. His website is gamermaps.net. If you play pretty much any game, there is a map on there. So check out our friend Zane in those maps. Very talented individual. Yeah.
All right. Well, we had spoken a little bit about them earlier, but Conan Exiles, they put out their 9/7/2020 patch.
Did they remove every feature from the game?
Not yet, but they are fixing crashes. Where, speaking of H1Z1, they would have removed almost every feature in the game, fixing crashes and fixing bugs.
Remove crashing.
But, yes. So here, they fixed a number of crashing issues. They fixed cases where online play is restricted. Warning message would show up after leaving a listen server. UI and text up fixes have been, they fixed some localization text, fixed fixes to friend invites where invitation would disappear during the game's title. Also fixed where invite would not be removed once accepting. Then healing wraps will no longer break their gameplay effect on movement. Adjustment vehicles, adjusted vertical land claim is in certain areas that prevented NPCs from spawning. Server ping will now refresh properly in the server browser, and the mute option functions once again. So that is the current patch for that.
Cool.
And then Rust. Now we hinted at an upcoming DLC that they were going to be releasing, that Sunburn DLC, which we remember we showed a few of the objects from that. They have officially released that now. So there is a video for this if you want to play that, and they'll show off a number of the things. And then we'll have a Shadowfrax video where he goes into a little more detail.
All right, let's take a look. A very artistic DLC trailer from our friends over at Rust. Oh yeah.
That's right up your alley.
Oh, this is it, Brian. Doesn't get better than this.
Beach living. I assume that goes faster than swimming, perhaps, or is it? It's probably the same speed.
Oh, the Polaroid.
Oh yeah. Oh, and you can put them on your wall.
No, that's freaking awesome.
How's to until someone's banned from the
All right. I'm chilling. Got the little sun bum going on. I got my sunglasses. Got my cooler, Brian. We're ready to go hang out at the beach. I mean, it's all ladies, my man. I'm living life right now. I don't have my Polaroid because it's packed, but living the life.
Yeah, there you go.
That's pretty cool.
And very interesting how they did this. Now let's go ahead and play the Shadowfrax one because they'll go into some of the other updates that they've done, plus into these. Could probably talk a little more about what these things actually do.
Let's take a look.
Greetings, survivors and friends, Shadowfrax here, and welcome to another episode of Bree. Why do they spend time making fun things when all I want is to be able to run the game on my toaster? Or, as you may know it, the Rust update. And this week's news is dominated by the Sunburn Summer DLC, which dropped on Steam in the last 24 hours for all of you to buy if you want. So I'm here with a full summary for you. Also, I have 2 keys for said DLC to give away, and I'll tell you how you can have a crack at winning one later in the vid. Right, so if you didn't know, haven't been watching my updates, or have just been hiding under a beach towel for the last month, the Rust Summer DLC is here. So let's have a look at what's included in the package, shall we? First of all, pools. The big one holds 2,000 mil.
Oh, that's cool.
I know it looks like more than 2 litres, has so much room for activities, and ideally should be placed on foundations. You'll need a platform about 4x5 to accommodate it, although if you can find some levelish ground, that'll work too. Then there's a small one which holds 500 mil and comes in 5 exciting flavours. The liquid is not included with either, so you'll have to fill them up manually. But such is the fun of summertime. What's perfect for doing this job are our 2 new weapons. Well, I say weapons, you can only fill them with water, and before you say anything, they'll only make another player wet if they are also holding a water gun. If so, the more you shoot them, the wetter they become, and eventually they'll start to lose health. So in this way they offer a kind of opt-in PvP mode, but definitely no giving people frostbite in the cold biome type pay-to-win malarkey here. The water pistol holds 250 mil and can be filled up with the right mouse button at a water source, fresh or salty like the tears of your enemies. Each squirt deposits 10 mil, and there's a pleasing marker noise with a successful hit. The water blaster holds 1 litre, is craftable in 5 different colours, which are perfect for team fights, and has a better range, but must be pumped every 500 mil by pressing R. As with other water containers, you can also sprinkle your crops and put out various fires with them, but not heli crates, so don't get too excited. They do have that nice liquid shader going on though, just as I predicted. Around the pool, of course, you'll need some summer furniture for that alfresco survival experience, and so you'll be glad to hear there's a beach chair and a parasol, which cools it down a bit when under it. Both available in 8 different colour schemes. Side table, towel, again in 8 styles, which is basically a sleeping bag and that will reserve you a respawn point on your favourite beach. Just make sure you get it set down early to avoid disappointment. For use in the pools, or in any water source to be honest, there's an inner tube which you can float around and travel on, 8 varieties of which are craftable, including horse and unicorn models. Nay, although you won't be able to move around if you've got a shooty stick out, and a boogie board which is somewhat faster, lower, and has 7 styles. Both of these are rather fragile though, and don't take much to pop and sink, and standing on them will make them slowly lose health too. You idiot. Why not visit one of your local oil rigs on one? I'm sure you'll get on swimmingly over there. However, one of the most exciting items in the DLC, I think, is the generic brand instant camera. each crafting of which lets you take up to 30 snappy snaps of whatever you want really, and scribble titles on them. And you can zoom with the right mouse button pressed, switch between focus modes with R, and manually focus with Shift plus right mouse. But that's not all! You can then mount your masterpieces in one of 3 new photo frames included in the package. Simply hold E on one and drag a photo into its inventory. You can also enhance them by drawing on them and swap them around at any time. And talking of frames, we now have some facial furniture in the form of sunglasses in 9 styles, which, although making everything very slightly darker when put on, won't cut down glare to any significant extent or grant any protection, in case you were wondering. But to be honest, who cares when you look this hot? Lastly, but certainly not least, it was decided to actually give you some fresh undercrackers to wear. And when I say fresh, I mean it. For those of you who own the DLC and actually wear undies, there should be an icon in your inventory now by the side of your character, and from here you can select one of 4 styles of southerly necessities. Splendid! Apart from the swimwear, all the other items function like musical instruments in that they can be used by anyone who finds, buys or steals them, but can only be crafted by DLC owners. I realise I didn't mention crafting costs, but that's because I couldn't be bothered and they're boring, but I'll stick them in the description for you. How's that? The DLC is available on Steam now for $9.99 with an initial 10% discount, and I'm reliably informed that it'll be available all year round for the Antipodeans amongst you, I guess. Oh, and there are also some extra Steam achievements to go along with that. As I said at the beginning, I have 2 keys to give away for the Sunburn DLC, and down below you'll find a link to enter. I'll draw 2 winners randomly from the entries on Sunday the 12th of June, 5 PM BST, so keep checking your emails around that time as you'll need to reply to claim your copy. All the best. In other news this week, because there is still such a thing, some intriguing commits were happening over the last few days that hint at an elevator block. But so far everyone's been rather tight-lipped about it. Is this a new building piece, or does it pertain to a monument? Apart from that, there were some small tweaks and improvements to cars, with collision damage having been reduced by about 1/3 after feedback about it being too high, and more leniency when it comes to placing car lifts to allow them to be stuck in tighter areas. There's not a huge amount more to report on this week, but I'd imagine as work on the DLC is over, apart from the fixes to obligatory but nevertheless entertaining game-breaking bugs, we should see the team move on to other things over the next week, like hopefully allowing us to insert water blasters into turrets. Nudge nudge. Join me on Twitch, where I stream 3 times a week. Keep up to date with the nonsense I produce on Twitter, Facebook, Discord and my Steam group. And if you'd like to support the channel, be sure to check out Patreon and maybe join the ranks of these smashing supporters on the right. Links are down below. I shall catch you all soon, of course, but in the meantime, keep calm and stay rusty. Cheerio.
All right, Brian. Little wardrobe change here. Getting ready for you. Got the beach attire going on. I got the sunscreen, the Hawaiian shirt. I mean, I'm all in, baby. The sunburn.
Right, it's time to play some Rust.
The sunburn pack, which I had the worst sunburn from the week past. Like literally couldn't sleep. My skin was on fire. $9.99. It's 10% off. You can get it for $8.99 for the next 40 hours. So. You got a couple days to get that for $9. Their DLC is really well priced.
Yep. No, they make it obtainable, and it definitely will sell it to much of their dedicated audience. All right. So now let's talk a little bit about Dead Matter.
Sure.
And they put out their July 10th update. One thing, I'll give their note about the closed alpha. They said, well, we can't say much about the roadblock itself. We can say that significant progress has been made over the last week and that we're getting there. Unfortunately, this is not the update that I get to tell you all that we're there just yet. However, as with the last update, we've been working hard on optimization, bug fixes, polishing, etc., in preparation for that closed alpha. In here, they have been, now there's some videos of them working on like the driving of cars, handling how they handle jumps and bumps and things like that, and how they're interactive. So they give some examples of that, opening doors and getting into the car and being able to drive it. Also, they show off the hand grenade. So this one, they show, first of all, you can see the wheel that they allow you to pick your throwables with.
That's very cool.
And then throw the objects. Yep. And seems to work pretty well. The animations look good. Then they show off some of the fire effects, for example, from the Molotov.
Using Crown Royale for Molotov cocktail? That doesn't seem like the right
I think they got a couple different kinds you can throw. Yeah, but that's one of them. Then they show, so the top one, they're showing the general fire effect. Below that, they're showing how it just doesn't spread evenly. You know, if you have walls or something blocking it, actually will
very cool.
stay within that area, which is, you know, not an easy thing to do. And then they show it against, you know, throwing a lot against zombies and how they catch on fire. You can see the zombies catch on fire. Looks pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very nice.
I wonder what this is going to do for performance, though. Fire is very hard to render. Fire and rain.
If you remember H1Z1,
yeah,
whenever we would raid and blow up something and fire started happening, everybody would lag out.
Yeah, the server would go to.
I mean, this is on Unreal Engine. They can always continue to optimize it, but I think that they'll definitely have to put in some work into optimizing this in the future.
Yeah,
because it's one thing with a single player game, you know, where you're not having to deal with networking, but Fire networked is more of a pain to do. So I'm sure they're trying to optimize that quite a bit.
Agreed.
They're also showing off some of their melee weapons.
Ooh.
So these are a number of katanas, samurai swords, things like that.
Oh, I like this one
that
with
you
the,
can get in game.
With this little gear,
the leather handle and the grip.
Yeah, it's like a cogwheel or something. That's pretty cool looking.
Yep.
Wow.
So they got
these look really
a number of different styles. Yeah, that they've gone, so you can have a lot to pick from. Also, they're showing off some of the things they've been doing with the guns. So there's some pistols. And you can see these are their high res versions, but a lot of detail, looks very good. They have another player that's been working on their character model, because before they were using one from the Unreal Marketplace, and this one, you know, this is the new character they've been making. So they're showing you the design of that, and then also the zombie version. Barricades, they have some examples of those. Not only barricades, you know, they can place, but they also have doors and ways of blocking doors up.
Is this
they have?
Is this a rain filter, a water collection system? That's kind of what it looks like. It's the 3 barrels stacked. It's kind of.
I would assume that you put water in the top one, and then it goes through 3 levels of filtration. Probably, yeah. I don't know.
That's pretty cool. That's cool looking.
Yeah, I would assume it's some sort of a water filtration system.
Nice,
because it says on there, reinforce. Players will be able to use barrels for water collection. So okay. Probably what it is those hold the water. So it looks up top. You can connect it to where water goes into that reservoir. Then it starts filling those up one at a time, just so that it fills from the bottom up.
That's pretty cool.
They also show some door blocks and window things, secure window things that you can put on there. And that's pretty much it. So it's a lot of just different things that various people on their team are working on, but still making progress.
So the roadblock. So we still don't have an ETA.
No, not yet. I mean, we'll see. I mean, I don't know what it is that's still blocking, because he doesn't really talk about that. But something is still blocking to where they're not ready to open up for alpha.
That's unfortunate.
Yep.
Let's talk about a little game that we like to call Atlas. We don't always hear a whole lot from them. So let's go through this. They did a Pirate Day Q&A with developers, which apparently turned out relatively well. There was just a bunch of questions and answers. They asked about PvP on official servers. They asked about seasons. They asked about Atlas on the PlayStation. It was 3 questions. The first one was the new PvP official servers. When you claim an island, is it safe for you, or is it possible to be raided? I don't mind PvP at sea, just base raids suck. Just curious. Atlas is intended to be a game about pirates, and while our land-based combat is deep and rich, the new enemy behind Atlas is to bring the depth and richness to the sea as well. More interesting interactions with oceans and ships is where the is where we are pointed and where we'll be making a host of changes to drive more players' energies in that directions. Look for future development towards. So he didn't answer the question at all. They did not answer the question. Very simple. When you claim an island, is it safe or will it be raided? They did not answer the question. So I'm not going to read through the other 3 questions because they didn't answer those either. Except for the PS4 one. It says, for sure, we want Atlas to be accessible on as many platforms as possible. So
we are considering whether that means try to go to PS4. So that's still not an answer.
Yeah,
they want pretty much, but there's no guarantee they will.
Yeah, pretty much 3 questions and 3 non-answers. So good work, folks. So we had that, and then we also had an update here. If their website will load, here it is. Farmhouse coming next week. This is one of their new. I guess it's a new. It's not a POI. It's something that you can build. It's a farmhouse. So what it'll allow you to do is it will automatically collect resources within a range of itself. So if you annex an island or a plot of land, you can build this farmhouse and it will collect various things, grass, wheat, whatever things it might be collecting, and it will allow you to have a constant flow of resource without having to constantly till the land, which of course, Brian, is an issue because they say they want to make it a ship-based game, but then you have to go on land and scavenge up rocks and all this other crap to do things. So I guess this is a way that they're going to go about doing this. And also, they'll have the ability now, Brian, to purchase ships with gold. Building ships is core to the Atlas experience, so you can still craft your own masterpiece, but you'll be able to now purchase them with gold. So they're now giving you another way to maybe... We always talk about what can we accomplish in a single night, right? If we say, hey, we're going to play this for a Friday night game of the week, maybe we get in there and just get a bunch of gold and just buy something and screw around with it for a couple hours, and then you're done. I don't mind this
kind
at
of
all.
Solves that. Remember, this is when I kind of discussed the limitations to this game is it's hard to have PvP when something takes you 3 days to build.
Yeah.
If they come up with ways that you can get a lot of money and then you can buy ships, I mean, there's no reason to have 50 ships. But if you have a lot of gold, you could do a lot of PvP and not be so concerned about losing something that took you so long to make. So I think that's kind of their way of working around that whole limitation of PvP in the game.
I would agree. So
right.
that is Atlas.
Now, Ring of Elysium put out an update this week, and it was a really small one. This was the July 9th, 2020, and they just have an adventurer character called Klein, and they have 3 different skins: biomechanic style A, and biomechanic style B. So they have 3 skins for that. Also, they did a fix for the GTX 1660 graphics card, which now enables DirectX 12 automatically. So that is it.
Very cool. 7 Days to Die. We've got an update here. It's on their form, so I'm trying to determine what is the new portion of this.
B163. It should be at the bottom, if I remember correctly. I'll scroll down.
Yes. No, hold on.
The thing is, they do them by multiple posts. So
B160, here it is. Okay, so a couple of things that they've added. They've added writable storage box. I guess that means that you can write on it now.
Put a label on it?
Yeah. Well, you could already put labels on it, so I don't really know what that... Well,
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was. They've added American flag version flagpole, so they've added that to the game. Chair versions of plaid and leather section couches have been added. Player stat UI shows values using tags if set. Night is darker when the moon is not full, so that's cool. So now there's nighttime dynamic light. Added POI names to DBS command screenshots, and then boars, coyotes, dogs, mountain lions, and wolves can now attack while moving forward. So previously they would run, stop, and attack. Now they can attack while they run.
You could always kind of stay a little bit out of their range.
This is going to make them a huge threat. And then on top of that, Brian, there's a whole bunch of fixes and changes that they made, as well as they're continuing with the push of the Alpha 19 experimental. So
very good.
That is
this is the one that this is the one that I played on, I think, because I think it was released on Friday in the morning, and we played it for Friday night game night. So this was the version that we were running on whenever it was playing this weekend. So also there was some updates to Arc. They put out 3 updates this week, just a couple in each, or actually one of them has a decent number in it. 3.12.32. This was on the 7th. They improved logic used to in our shooting desync exploit fix from the previous patch. And they fixed a bug where that would have prevented data from being written to the cloud when transferring characters, and that's on official servers only. 3.12.35, this is the bigger one. This is on July 9th. They fixed an exploit related to the railgun and also one to the shoulder cannon. The mechs can now harvest corpses with their swords. Reduced tech generator enemy foundation check radius in PvP. Multiple level design fixes related to holes, volumes, floating foliage, and collision. Roll rat passengers are no longer killed when the roll rat rolls. Begin mating has now been moved back to the standard tick, should eliminate the delay in creatures starting to mate. Tech sensor settings should not restart after loading a saved game. Crystal Wyvern cloning costs have been rebalanced, removed some unusable items from the mission loot tables. They added Tech Trike and Ice Golems to the recoverable cryo arrays so that they can be cryoed and used in Genesis specifically. Additional hexagon loot crate protection to prevent them from being unopened upon purchase. Tech Gloves now work on Genesis. They fixed some cases where the Rock Drake was able to shoot at turrets but not be targeted. The Mega Lechen Dermis now works on the large taxidermy base. The HLNA skin will now respect the disabled default survivor item option in the client. They added a baby imprint amount multiplier to the game settings. They further tweaked the logic used in shooting desync exploit fix. So that's the 3rd time they've worked on that. Fixed another bug that would have prevented data from being written to the cloud when transferring characters official only. That's looks like they fixed that one again. Prevented unclaimed dinos from breeding. Prevented the baby dinos from auto harvesting. And then fixed element pool not restoring tech equipment or elements for tech equipment. And then the final one, 3.12.40, they fixed a server crash. They improved shooting accuracy on lower FPS servers against moving targets. And they fixed some client crashes specific to mods. So that brings us current with Arc.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Brian. Let's talk about Unturned and an update that they've got out. This is update 3.20.6. Excuse me. 3.20.6.0 is the update. And there's a couple things in here. There's a trailer for a new map that I'll show while I'm talking because we don't need to listen to it. This is the trailer for their new map called Elver, which will be available this Friday. And there's a community-made trailer for this. A couple of update things in here. They've changed several settings that have been added to they've added several settings to the config.json file for limiting the size of vehicle bases. So they've changed a couple of things and added some parameters there that you can now configure on your end. This is more of a Unity thing. It says following the recent Unity upgrade and post-processing upgrade, the bloom threshold has been raised to only affect pixels within 1 emission. This prevents bloom from interfering with brighter surfaces like beaches. The emission colors on a few hundred materials have been adjusted to match, especially the bloom on fire looks nicer. If any materials were missed or look odd, feel free to report them as a bug and we'll make sure that they're adjusted. And then Rocket. Servers using older versions of Rocket will now require an update to the new version. There was a warning about this in the server's console log in the previous update, but now it is mandatory. This is important because there fixes legacy Rocket issues like multi-threading exceptions and teleportation exploits. As well, they did a couple of general additions, including flags for plugins to disable life things, flags as in not physical flags, but parameter flags. They added collection tags for Steam items. They added the effect spawner component for Unity, and then they added rubble reward probability as well as some general changes and general fixes. So that is 3.20.6.0.
Nice. One thing I did want to say, thank you to Saul Greatman for 29 months in a row. And he says, happy land ownership, Nick.
Well, you should be saying that to my bank, who owns the land as
currently,
as they will own it for the next little period of time. So thank you, Saul. I appreciate it for your support here on the program.
Also, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about Xera. And they had a small patch this week, the 6.6.2. And one thing they did do is they ended the Independence Day event that they were doing. And they removed Statue of Liberty from settlements, and they removed the Liberty drops from the robots. And then they made some adjustments to the humanoids by reducing stalker damage to 14. It was 20%. And they fixed an issue with the stalker body part damage multiplier not working. So now it makes them easier to kill. The loot, they increased the time it takes for loot to despawn from 10 minutes to 15 minutes, or they increased it. Items will stay on the ground longer after being dropped or spawning. So a lot of times that's adjustment is made as server performance and performance of the client gets better. They're able to have more objects in the world because that does affect performance quite a bit. So
very cool.
And then the final game, Survive the Nights, put out a decent sized update here. This is their 1.4.21 hotfix. One thing that they did do in this is they temporarily disabled shift moving items due to stability issues. So like if you're holding down shift and dragging items in your inventory, I guess there was a problem with that. So they're fixing, disabled that temporarily, fixed the server crash caused by containers. This probably got about 30 fixes here. I'm not going to go through them all. I'll mention a few. They improved some sounds. You can now pick up loot from beds, fix some issues with headshots and password issues, zombie issues, all kinds of stuff, network performance improvements. So this is a game that they're just constantly improving, and hopefully they get to a point where they feel like it's ready and we'll go on there. And it's got a lot of cool features. It's a very unique game. Feels like some other games that we played. But I think there's a lot of promise with it, but I think it's just one that until it's done, it's not one that you want to keep playing it over and over again. Like I'd rather wait till it's closer to finish and then experience what they intend rather than playing it endlessly and getting bored with it. So it's a game like Scum and like Miscreated. There's a lot of promise. It's just, I feel like, Brian, we've been saying this for 5 years, but it's just there's a couple things that could make it really turn the corner. But I do honestly feel that way for a lot of these games, and STN is included in that. It's a very solid game. So check it out once it's ready.
Yes, sir.
All right, I think that's it for games.
All right, cool. Well, if that is the case, then we're going to go ahead and look at some current player numbers for some various video games. Starting it off with Ark Survival Evolved, 50,438 are currently playing that. The 24-hour peak, 75,332, with a 7-day peak of 85,118. Moving on over to Rust, currently playing 53,063, the 24-hour peak, 74,651, with a 7-day peak of 80,816. Moving on over to 7 Days to Die, fantastic numbers coming out of this game, Alpha 19, obviously being well received. 23,836 people currently playing. The 24-hour peak, 28,534, with a 7-day peak of 36,546. Looking at Conan Exiles, currently playing this, 8,702. The 24-hour peak, 12,151, with a 7-day peak of 14,541. Wrapping us up, Atlas, currently playing 4,420. The 24-hour peak, 5,650, with a 7-day peak of 6,879. And Brian, that brings us current for current players, all the people that are playing various video games.
Very good. Well, let's go ahead and roll into tip of the week. And this is where I either give a general gaming tip or one for a specific game. And I figured this may be the only time I do it, but I'll give you a tip for The Last of Us 2. So this is tip of the week.
Wow.
All right. Well, I figured it'd be fun to give, some tips for The Last of Us 2. So let's see how this goes. When running around and looting, one thing I found interesting about this is you need to look for items behind glass. A lot of times in games when you're going and looting, you'll notice that you can see an item through glass, and you'll see an indicator that the object is there. Not in this one. It's an object that will be just like any other object in the world that's not lootable until you break the glass. So it could be a fridge, a vending machine, things like that. You break the glass and then you're able to loot it. They did it very well. It feels very natural doing that. Another helpful tidbit is the audio cues. So as you're sneaking around, this one has the ability to go prone, and you can crawl in grass, and then you can also crouch and go in grass. But there's a little cue, an audio cue, when someone's starting to detect you. What it does is the sound tone starts to rise and the volume starts to increase with the more exposed you are. And this gives you a little bit of a heads up to be able to duck back into cover before you're fully detected. They may kind of see that, they may indicate that something is there and say, hey, what's over there, but they haven't fully detected you. Once they fully detect you, then, they'll alert other people and they'll start chasing you. But this gives you a little heads up to where, okay, you're indicating that they're suspicious, but they won't do a full pursuit. If you can stay in stealth, another interesting thing that they've done in this one is you're able to charge an enemy maintaining that stealth. So let's say you are crouched in grass. There's an enemy that's a little bit distance ahead of you. You're able to charge them, and it won't break that stealth prior to interacting with them and killing them. So that is something that the mechanics of this game there's a lot of beautiful mechanics. The story, I wish I could say I'm definitely let down by the story. It's not anything of what I would hope for. But hopefully, if you are playing this or looking to play it, hopefully that's helpful. And that is tip of the week.
All right. Thank you very much, Brian. We appreciate that. Kind of a
yes,
unexpected tip, Brian. You gave me your unexpected tip this week. And
I've been forcing myself to play it. I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through it currently. And it's just, I never would expect this. I remember with Red Dead 2, I sat there, I would play it all day. Like, I just couldn't wait. Like, I'd go to bed, get up, and I'd play it. And I beat the whole thing in a week. And there's a lot of content in that game. Yeah. This one, it's the opposite. Like, I feel like I need to get through the story. Like, I want to get through it so I can give an actual, honest, critique or give relevant review of the game. But I'm like, I have to play it, and it's not fun at the moment. I mean, there are moments of fun, but there's nothing there. Like, the story drove me along in Red Dead 2. Like, there was a story and I wanted to kind of unfold it. But this one, I'm just forcing myself to play it, and it's just like I get tired because it's all about violence and just violence and killing things constantly. There's no other. The story isn't there. There's no other real story. All you're doing is brutally killing thing after thing after thing after thing, and it just wears me out.
Unfortunate. Well,
yeah, not what I expected.
If I know a lot of people have played it, send us a tweet or message on Discord or an email or something if you've got either the same experience or a different experience. I'm genuinely curious. All right, Mr. Brian, do we have a game giveaway winner that we can announce here on the program?
All right, so let's go ahead and close this, and we will draw. Congratulations to Just for Gaming, who came in just at the last minute. He entered the giveaway right before we did it.
Just for Gaming, typical shyster, sliding in here right at the end to steal
last
a game.
Minute, yeah.
Yep.
Yep. All these people who entered early have been sitting there the whole show, and then he comes at the last minute. Congratulations.
I call it collusion.
I will send you.
But
yes, I will send you a link inside of Twitch here, so you can redeem your games. Congratulations, Truck 2. So
yeah.
Is there anything else we need to do before we roll on out of here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, if you want to find me at Boise Computer on Twitter, of course, my blog, biteoftech.com. You can also go check out our website, infectionpodcast.com, which if you notice, I was distracted through the show a little bit. I was getting that back up and running as well. But you can go to the right-hand side there and join our server on Discord. On there, you can submit news. There's a news channel if you want to join us for Game of the Week. and people are just kind of hanging out, a lot of back and forth there. So it's our primary location for communicating for the podcast. Also, we have our Steam group if you want to get a notification prior to the show starting. We're also on Twitch, on YouTube, on BitChute, and DLive. And also, if you want to catch our pre and post show, we do have a channel for that Judd keeps up for us, and that is the Infection Podcast Extras. And we have a link for that below the BitChute link. Also, we have the audio-only version. So if you want to listen to us on a mobile device or on a desktop app, there's a lot of different ways that you can do that through those links. And those are ones that are posted after the fact. All the video ones you can watch live during the show, but those ones you can listen to afterwards. And if you're listening or watching it afterwards, you're more than welcome to follow along the episode with show notes for the 287th episode of the show now. So whatever episode you want to listen to or watch, follow along. You can go check out all the articles and see some of the things that we're discussing. If you'd like to support the show, you're more than welcome to do that. There's a support link in the menu, but also humble.infectionpodcast.com, amazon.infectionpodcast.com, and of course the Twitch Prime subs, as you have seen people doing throughout this show. And we thank you very much for your support. So
yes, and a couple of those individuals would be our friend Green Man Cartoons, Oh It's Judd, Izzy Tripping, and then Saul Greatman, all hitting us up with the resubscriptions here on Twitch. Gentlemen, thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it. All right, game of the week. I'm not going to be around. Brian may or may not be around, so something might be there, something might not, unfortunately. But nevertheless, we'll get past that.
But we should have our game servers will be up. We have, I think, 8 ARC servers like now. We also have the 7 Days to Die server up and running as well. So there's a good chance that people will be jumping into one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Brian. Well, thank you. As always, we'll see you next Tuesday in a far different setup. I'm very anxious to see what's going to be ready for next Tuesday. It'll be me in like an outhouse. trying to do the
broadcasting
show.
live from your bathroom.
I mean, yeah, it might be. I have no idea what the status is going to be, but yeah, we'll be back here next Tuesday, hopefully at 7 p.m.
Worst
Eastern.
case, we'll stream from. You can stream from the McDonald's Wi-Fi. You'll be set.
Bite your tongue. That's not even funny. It's just not even funny, Brian. No part of that is funny. We'll be back next Tuesday around 7 o'clock Eastern. We're live on Twitch, YouTube, and DLive. You can check us out on all those platforms. Links for that are on our website, infectionpodcast.com. Thank you, Brian. We'll see you next week. Alrighty, folks. You can follow me on Twitter at Nicholas M. Craig. I'm also on Parler, Gab, some of these other social networks as well. Our show is also available on BitChute, which is super important with as we talked about earlier in the program in weeks past, the cancel culture, the 2020 cancel culture is part of that. So make sure you are subscribed to us on BitChute, or at least can get to that if the videos no longer appear on YouTube, which who knows? All of that stuff is possible. We are ruling nothing out in the year 2020. All right, again, my social media, you can follow me at Nicholas M. Craig. If you want to see some IT stuff, you can check out my IT blog, dudeandit.com. If you missed any portion of the show, videos, links, show notes, pictures, videos, all that fun stuff is on our website. It's infectionpodcast.com. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Stay safe. Have a great week. We'll see you next time.